Hello and welcome to program number 9, where we'll be looking at photography. Now, photography is a wonderful science come art. It's really a blend of the two. And today in the studio I have a friend with me whom you've met before. The friend is Longan Siniski, and he's sitting with me here in the studio, and behind us on this TV screen you can see a slide of his work. And so today we're going to be talking and looking at Longan's work. So welcome, Longan.
Thank you very much for invitation.
Well, Longan, from your accent we know that you come from somewhere outside Australia, and I know by looking at your work that you have a great passion for photography. So let's focus on you for a while. Where do you come from?
Yes, that's right. I came from Poland. I settled here in Perth over 2 years ago, and I started to work here in Perth, but I think at least half of my life I spent with camera around me. So photography, it's my patience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always with me. Sometimes I have feeling that my back with camera, it can stick to my body, to my back.
Yes.
It's always with me. I try to have with me because you never know when you will need it.
Yes.
So I try to have with me always, if it's during daytime or nighttime or in boring situation or very, very exciting situation, I keep my camera somewhere around.
Good. You mentioned the word patient, and that gives me a clue, because that suggests to me that you had studied medicine at one stage. Is that correct?
That was far ago. Yes, I was student in university in Poland, and I studied medicine for almost 3 years. Yes, that's right. But then I realized that I really don't like this subject, and I gone far away from it.
Yes, you certainly have. You've picked up on an art form rather than a scientific form. Yes.
Yes, that's right.
So working with cameras gives you a great deal of insight into the way a place operates and how people operate, but you've also traveled a great deal, haven't you, with the camera?
It was at least few years when I traveled around the world. It was during that time, it was also Australia as a point of my interest, and 9 years ago I was in Australia first time. Then with my wife, which you know already.
Yes, Gosha.
We came here and we realized that we like this country, and we decided to come back for a bit longer distance of time.
Yes.
So we settled, as I said, in '96, and from then we started to work in our job. I mean, in our professions.
Right.
Since then, I had 3 exhibitions here. 2 of them was absolutely solo exhibition. One of them was group exhibition at Moores Building, but because we were under one title of exhibitions, but still I feel that it was something like solo as well.
Yes.
So I can say roughly that it was 3 my solo exhibition here.
Right. But in a lot of your photography, you've picked up on the Australian colours. For example, in the monitor here, we've got this close-up of a flower, which is quite exquisite. If we could take a close look at this now, you've obviously gone into this where you've got very close.
Yes,
How
that's
close would you be?
That's macro photography, where picture was taken from distance of 2, 3, sometimes 5 millimeters from the object.
It's 3 to 5 millimeters from the object. That is really, really close, isn't it?
Yes, that's very close.
Now that would depend on depth of field, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's right. You can go quite close to the object, but you can have also very, very small, or very, maybe not very deep, but deeper field of sharpness in your
Right.
on your picture, and you can see the object maximum sharp, or you can see only 1 point sharp. And as you realize, if you use in your life at least once any of camera with manual lenses, and I mean manual cameras, you can always change something on your lenses. I brought few lenses for you, and I have on this particular occasion I can explain you the depth of field. You have here aperture, which you can change with
That's aperture, and you can change it by turning it, right?
by turning and changing the number. Of course, if you have the smallest number, your aperture is open widely. But if you change up, of course, it change also your time. You will realize that if you will close your aperture, so it means if you choose the bigger number of your aperture, it means that much less light coming into your lens and then to the film. Then you have to use different time because everything change. If it's much less time, I mean much less light in lens, you have to use much longer time for your
For exposure.
exposure, yes.
Mhm.
So, but because of this aperture, you have also on this everywhere in each lens you have also different numbers, which shows you what is sharp in your lens, what could be sharp on your picture.
Mhm.
So between this number, if you use, for example, aperture number 11, everything between numbers 11 will be sharp, and everything which is between these distances will be sharp on your film. So that's actually the depth of sharp,
Right.
of field, sorry.
Yeah.
On this occasion, you realize that if you change anything in your camera, you change absolutely everything on your film.
Yes. But that, of course, wasn't always the case, because
Oh, yes.
when you know, cameras started, and I suppose really, if we are quite honest, we go back to the camera obscura, which was first thought of and developed by someone like Aristotle in the you know, ancient Greek times, and then that came down right through to the Renaissance. So, you know, in the Renaissance we know that Leonardo da Vinci used the camera obscura, and it was really a room that you could move around with, and had a little pinhole in one wall, and then through it would, the outside view would come inside, and the artist could sit there and more or less trace what was used.
Mhm.
And then, of course, that developed into the 19th century with people like de Geer, who developed the daguerreotype. But that relied on a very lengthy time of exposure. Now, you've mentioned the word exposure, but with de Geer, in the development of the daguerreotype, I think it took something like 8 hours to expose the sensitive material on which he was using. With this particular photograph that we've been looking at here on the monitor, how long would your exposure have been?
Of course, that depends how big deep of field I need. But if I need very, let's say, thin or not deep field, I can use much shorter time in that case. So, for example, in this particular picture we have here, I use, I think, 1/125 second.
That's 1/125th of a second.
Yes, that's right.
That's very brief.
1/25th part of the second. So in that case, you have enough short time to take a picture without any movement of your hands. Of course, after walking, after doing something, your hands are tired. Even especially my hands are tired. So because of it, it's constant movement of this hands. So because of it, if time is too long, you can catch your movement on your picture.
Right.
So picture won't be, I mean, the object won't be enough sharp.
Yes. But in this particular case, you can come right into the center of the flower, and you've caught all this gorgeous color. Is very vibrant.
In this particular picture, we have few different things together. We have tele lens, or let's say, I don't remember exactly, that was 180 millimeters lens, so already tele lens. We have rings here, we have filters here, and we have Vaseline here. So we have a lot of different, absolutely different things in one picture.
Yes. Now, to show people what that looks like in, you know, size relationship, we have a photograph here of another one, which shows you the size. So it goes this way. Mind you, I prefer it this way.
Yeah, you can use as you like,
yes.
of course.
But here is the same sort of idea, but viewers can see how big it is. It's quite a large photograph when it's been fully developed through. So it works rather beautifully.
But from other point of view, it's large photograph, but the objects, as you know, it's very teeny.
Yes.
Sometimes smaller than 1 millimeter.
Yes, because
we have
this one
grevillea here.
Yes. Yes, this is the grevillea, and you've gone in very, very close. Now you've mentioned, you know, that you're looking at the micro world because you've gone in so close to look at something which is really small. But in many ways it captures the macro. So the macro, of course, is the feeling of the whole universe, or a much larger world is captured within the small world. And this is quite a beautiful photograph. And again, because it's a composition, you could turn it in any direction. And this shows the skill of the photographer, because if you move it in any direction, it is beautifully balanced. And it forms a lovely composition. So it works whichever way you put it. And of course, the gorgeous colors here, it really glows with a vitality, with a sense of life. These look stunning when they're framed and put on walls, anywhere in the business world, in hotels, in people's lounge rooms. And they're really lovely photographs.
With photography, you have something additional. It's not only art, it's also technique.
Yes.
Involved very much in this subject. So because nature is beautiful, you just catch the nature, the beauty of the nature, and it's much easier than sometimes we can say than with pure art.
Art, yes. Well, it is, as I said at the beginning, that photography is the blend of science and art coming together, or technology and art working together, working in harmony. You have to have a knowledge of art, but you've got to have the knowledge of the technology, on how to use the camera. Now, you've mentioned using Vaseline.
Yes, I brought also some samples of different kind of Vaseline, and I want to
Can you give me one of those?
show you how you can change your object, even if it's, for example, not enough beauty in your object, or you want to create, you need something additional, that simple photography. You can create additional beauty of your objects. So, because very often in my mind I need something special, I feel that I would like to add something to my photography. I create something additional. So because of it, I brought you normal Vaseline, but of course you can create your own Vaseline, and you can create millions of colors, and you can create, of course, because of it, additional objects which doesn't exist in world.
Right.
So
And we're going to be seeing some of that today.
yes, I try to explain and show you what you can do with normal
All right.
object. So I choose one of color, whatever it is. It will be transparent. It's quite cool in this studio, so Vaseline is at that moment very cold and formed.
Now, you can only buy this from a photographer's?
You can
Suppliers?
buy in good shops, photography shops, where they sell cameras and
And
all
film. Yeah,
equipment.
yeah. Okay.
Then you have to buy that's cooking filters, but you can use different filters as well. You have your filter, you have ring which you will put onto your
Right. Now, this is
filter.
a filter. What is that made of?
That's because it's cooking, it's made of plastic. I choose, for this reason, I choose a fog filter in order to show that you can change your object by using different filters. I have few different filters. You see here, you have different gradient of your filter. It's different on left and right hand side.
Right, so that isn't just dust on there, it's
No,
actually meant to be like that.
It's meant to be like that. So if you will put your filter on upper part of your picture, it means that upper part it's like in fog.
Like in?
Fog. On the
Fog.
morning in England.
Oh, fog!
Yes.
Oh, right, yes, okay. So it creates a foggy effect.
Yes, this same kind of effect it's on this filter, but much smaller gradient.
Right.
And then I took a bit of my Vaseline. This Vaseline is straight from shop. It's not my Vaseline.
No,
it's
all right.
straight from shop. And you can apply on your filter. Then, if you will look properly through your lens, you will realize that everything after this lens change,
Yes. It changes. Right.
and the same situation with different kind of the Vaseline. We have here green Vaseline.
Well, we need to hold that away from your clothes because it's blending into everything you're wearing. Right. Oh, I see. Yes, it's
So
quite a
if
turquoisey.
you will put
Yes. I
in
can see
front
that.
of my hand,
Yes.
you will realize that in particular place my hand change color.
Mm.
And then you will put your filter
Into the ring.
into the ring. Then you can put to your lens.
Removing the lens cap, yes. And you
And
put
then, if you look via viewfinder,
that viewfinder, right?
you will realize that you have something strange on your camera.
Yeah.
If you will change a bit, you realize that color going upwards and or whatever, because it could be different view as well.
Angle, right.
And of course you can apply different color of the Vaseline
Yes.
and make additional color on your object.
Now, for viewers out there who would want to try this, they'd need to have the ring that they can attach to their camera. They would have to have this piece of Perspex, which is a filter, and then they would need to buy the Vaseline. But you could use ordinary shop Vaseline that you use for, say, rubbing on your, chafed nose or lips, could you?
You have to experiment a bit. You have to know the transparency of the Vaseline. You have to apply with different colors.
Right.
Because, of course, like in life, with photography is the same. You have to be sure what you are doing.
All
So
right.
you have to make a lot of experiments.
Okay.
But in that case, we have different colors now.
Yes. You've
Different colors.
You've got the
So if
Australian
you-
colours there, the green and the gold.
I think it's not enough. We need at least yellow. Yellow we have, but blue and red as well.
Oh, all right. Okay, can we look at the next one, please? And then we can discuss this a little bit further. In the next one, we've got, again, a close-up of a flower. So you've gone in very close. Your depth of field is very, very small.
Very small.
And you're really looking here at the brilliance of the colour. And it allows you to take very, very close-up details. And they become quite abstract, really, because you've gone in so close. Now, did you use any Vaseline with this?
No particularly with this one, but because of the distance from the object, which is about 2-3 millimeters, I create absolutely different object. Of course, you see these flowers every day. That's daisies. So you see them almost everywhere, especially in particular part of the year. But you passing by and you not realize what you are passing.
Yes.
So because millions of us passing all these objects, I wanted to show something which is very, very beautiful, and which we passing without our knowledge.
In many cases, walking on them, not realizing how beautiful they are. This is quite an exquisite one because of the colours combinations of the purples, the violets, the golds, the yellow, orange, the red, the magenta. It works together as a beautiful composition. Now, in the next one that we can see coming up on the screen, and I like the way it dissolves, you've got that one that we showed you a while ago, and it's a close-up of the grevillea.
Yeah, but it's much closer view of the same grevillea.
Yes,
So
much closer.
Much closer was my lens.
Yes. In this case, you're getting a little bit of like fade out or a dissolve in the top left-hand corner, while down in the foreground, in the lower right-hand corner, it's very sharp definition. And so you've got that lovely gradual move into a dissolve or into a fade out.
That's the deep of field,
Yes.
where you have sometimes less than 1 millimeter of sharpness,
Yes.
and everything else going to be much less or much more sharp. That depends if you're going towards your point or going out of this point.
Right. Now in this other one that's coming up now, you can see that you've gone in again very, very small, but you're looking at something which most people don't even notice. These are stamen, aren't they?
Yes, but if you look at it, you have feeling that you look at stars. Of course, not during the night, because they are very vibrant colors, but that's simple flower. But this point of view shows you that this looks like our sky during the day.
Yeah.
Millions of stars. So I change. I think I change. I wanted to change the feeling and show something which we, as I said, passing by and which we can't see.
Yes, you might see them as stars, but as an independent viewer, I see it as looking down on a street with people walking around in twos and threes, and all I can see is the sun shining off their ball patches or off their hats. There's also a suggestion of movement here, possibly because of the diagonal lines, but you've got that sense of movement coming through the whole image as well. In this
That's
one, yes?
Sorry for disturbing you. That's the problem with the very, very close view of the object. So if you move a millimeter, your full object starting to move.
Yes.
If you catch this picture, if it's even 125th part of the second, it's still long enough to catch this movement. And this one was catch here a bit.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It caught that sense of that little tremor in the hand or
Yes,
whatever.
I absolutely agree that it's very strong feeling of movement in this picture.
Yes. But it's accentuated by the diagonal lines as well. Now, with that movement, do you use a tripod when you're...
Yes, of course I use tripod, but not always.
Not always.
And the feeling with tripod, it's different. You have feeling like in studio. If you have your camera in your hands, you have sometimes feeling that it's part of your body.
Right.
So it's maybe my feeling, but it's like that. So I prefer to take a picture without tripods, especially when you have to go such a close distance to the object, where your lens sometimes are inside of the flower or,
Yes.
or a different object.
Right. Now, if we look at the next one coming up, and here we don't have a flower, but we have a piece of stone.
Piece of stone, or you can say a lovely waterfall.
Yes, but again, how did you achieve that color? Is it the natural color of the stone, or are you using a colored lens?
In this
Filter, rather, I'm sorry.
in this situation, in this object, on this object, I didn't apply any filter. It was so brilliant color, and I could catch all crystals here that I had feeling that I don't need to use any of filters.
Right. So in this particular case, you haven't used any...
No, that's simple
Unnecessary.
lens.
Yeah.
Simple lens, good lens, and good exposure. Everything is quite sharp here. There
Yes.
is, you have feeling like water is running, but still you have some crystals, and they are very steady, and you don't have such a feeling like it was in previous picture.
No. Yes, it creates a different feeling altogether, doesn't it?
Yes.
And I'm pleased to hear that you didn't use any other attachments, because that gives hope to our viewers out there that they can take interesting photos like this without going to the expense of buying filters and Vaselines and rings and all that kind of thing. So they can just take an ordinary camera, go in close. Of course, these days, they have cameras out there that do all the thinking for you. But I think that would take a lot of the enjoyment away. Would that be true?
It's not only that. If you have automatic camera, you can't change the point of focus. So it was fixed for, let's say, 3 or 5 meters from the point of your lens to the object.
Right.
If you will put your object further from your lens or closer to your lens, and you will take this picture, you will realize, after developing, you will realize that, oh, something's going wrong. This object, it's not anymore very sharp. It should be, the person was sharp, but on your film, on your picture, it became like...
Lazy?
Yes, lazy, yes.
Mm.
So this kind of cameras don't give you the situation where you can rely on your knowledge and you can take picture as you wish.
Right. Yes. Now, can we look at an ordinary camera? Well, it's
Yes,
not so very
absolutely,
ordinary, but...
absolutely ordinary. For this reason, I brought normal camera, manual camera. I don't know how will be good to keep here. You can't take automatic pictures on this camera. I love this camera, but you can't take any automatic picture on this
So
camera.
you've got to do the thinking for it.
Yes. You have to decide what kind of time you like. You can change, now it's 1/25th part of the second. You can change for shorter time. Or in this camera, it's quite good. So in old and good, we have 1/4000th part of the second. Or you
That
can
is very, very...
short time.
Yes.
That's right. And then you have, of course, much longer time.
Yeah.
Then you have to change your aperture.
Right, that's there. We've mentioned that earlier. And that affects the
Deepness, of course.
depth of field.
And then you have to change the focus. That depends how far is your object.
Right. And
You
to
have to change.
find that, you've got to look through your viewfinder, which is usually...
On the back.
Is it there?
Yes, that's right.
Right.
On the back.
That's it there.
Of course, before that, you have to change the speed of your camera. You have here different window, small
Ah, yes.
different window. So you have the speed of your camera. Now,
Ah.
because in this camera you have film which is 100 ASA or 21 DIN, so I put this speed here. But of course, if you have different film, much, let's say, faster, you will turn this window into 50
All right.
or smaller number.
Yes. Now, you mentioned ASA. What's that?
That's, oh yes, we came back to the same point. And that's the speed of your film. That depends how fast speed you use. In shops, you can find films from 100 to 400, sometimes to 800. But of course, there is much faster films or much slower films. That depends on kind of photography you want to use.
Yes.
We can go into it, but we'll spend a long time with it. I think for today's reason, we should say that speed between 100 and 400 ASA, it's absolutely enough for photographers,
Right.
especially for amateurs photographers.
Let's have a look at the next one on the screen, Longan. This is quite an incredible photograph. It's very hard to tell what it is. Can you give a little bit of light on the situation?
I told you once that in my photography I like to create something. We have object on this picture which are very dry and small seeds of tree. This picture was taken in South Africa, and I thought it's nice but not nice enough to take a picture. So I apply my Vaseline on filter, I put on my lens, and I look at camera, and I find no, it's still boring. I took already few such pictures. So I took my filter from lens and I put on object.
Oh, I see. So
So-
that, say you were taking a photograph of the ring on my finger and you found it rather uninteresting, you would literally take the filter,
I put my filter on your ring
right, like that,
like that,
and then you take a photograph.
then I took photograph.
Right. So the filter doesn't go on the camera, it actually goes on the object.
On the object, that's right.
Right. So that's where this comes in.
So here you have very thick Vaseline,
Right.
which goes
it-
around, roughly around the objects. Sometimes you can see objects, sometimes you can't, because it's too thick dip of Vaseline. But I create absolutely different object, which doesn't exist on this earth. But pictures got something additional.
Yes.
And because I was bored with particular object, I changed the object and I took absolutely, you can see absolutely different,
Yes.
different thing.
It's almost created, I know this is micro, that you're very close to the
Yes.
object, but because of the cleverness of your photograph, you've created something which looks like a universe, like an exploding star or, you know, something out from an outer galaxy happening here. Can we look at the next one? And here again, you're very close to a flower, aren't you? And you've come in very, very close on this one. And you've more or less focused on the center and let the rest of it sort of dissolve back out again. And so if we look at the next one, now here we have a poinciana, isn't
right.
it? This is the one that you used for an invitation to an exhibition.
Exactly this cropping I used for my exhibition for one of my invitation for one of my exhibition here, and we have again very, very close view of the flower. I remember that in this situation I was not further than 1 or maybe 1.5 millimeter from the object.
Yes.
I mean from the part of the object which is sharp.
Right.
And if I moved in any direction a bit, I didn't feel it, but I seen it in my camera that was already unsharp.
Right.
So I had to be very, I had of course camera in my hand, so I had to be very, very stability, and the time should be very, very short.
Short. Right. Now, the next image that we see shows again the close-up of the flower, and I just draw attention to the viewers the use of color here, and you would be using a filter perhaps here to get that color?
No, again in this situation it was without filter, it was a lot of rings, and I came very, very close to the object, but it was without any filter. We have now 2 different photographs. First one, where I choose to make sharp point of the white flowers, and then you will see on next one you will see the center of the flower in sharpness. So you have the same points which are out of focus now,
Right, yes.
and the center which is very sharp.
Now, you didn't use a filter or anything with this, did you?
No, again not.
So all these colours that we're seeing here on the screen are natural colours.
That's natural.
Right. Now, it's amazing to think that in this wild West Australian flower, we have all those beautiful colours. And as we said earlier, most of the time we're not even aware of it. Now, we better move on to the next one. Oh, yes. This again is South Africa?
That's South Africa again, and again very, very, very close view of the flower.
Right.
You can see even hair of the flower.
Right.
And on next picture, we have absolutely different object. We have glass, broken glass, on the wall, and you can see how this broken glass changed the different object.
Now, this is a reflection that
A
you've taken.
reflection on mirror
Uh-huh.
from house.
House. And the mirror is broken.
Mirror was broken, of course, that was intention to do that.
Yes. And so you've got this distortion through the broken mirror. So you've looked into the mirror and you're taking like a view that's sort of behind you or something like that.
That's a way that how you can change and create your own object. It's simple house,
Right.
but because of these broken mirrors, the house is absolutely absolutely different.
Right.
So you create absolutely new house. I mean, you not create, you create the view of absolutely different house.
Yes.
Okay, like that.
You've given it sort of a haunted feeling or a crumbling feeling. Right, that's very clever. Now, and this one is where you're actually, I think, sandwiching or putting...
That's absolutely different kind of photography. We have urban landscape, quite a close view of urban landscape, but that's only one picture. In this picture, we have two pictures, one on other.
Right.
We have sandwich, like you said,
Right.
exactly sandwich, like you would put two different pictures, one on other. We have shape of the door
Yes.
here. We have part of the window here. We have cage. We have number 262. But between that, we have something additional. On one slide, I put another slide. The second slide, the shape, we can see here. It's part of the key from the microphotography. So
All
you
right, now-
see key, by which maybe you can open this door, who knows, which was putting on another thing, on
Another
this
thing.
house.
Right. Okay, so it's really two photographs, one superimposed over the other in film, and then you produce from that.
But that was, these pictures, both of them, they was taken on slides.
Right. And the next one is something similar?
Yes, we have another, the same kind of photography, that on one object you will find another one. The first object is part of the house. That picture I took in Czech Republic, probably in Prague, if I'm not wrong. And on this surface, I put another slide, and you can see eyes of teeny toy, and that's red color in the center. That's nose of this toy. That's Chinese dragon, small
Oh.
Chinese dragon, about 7 to 10 centimeters big.
Big. And that's,
And
again,
this one, this eyes here we have. That's of course micro photography again,
mhm.
which were put on surface of normal photography,
Right.
urban landscape. We have
And if we here in the on between us, our viewers can actually see the actual size of the finished work. So here's the eyes of your Chinese dragon and the nose coming down here, and that is one slide, and then underneath it is the slide of the architectural features of the house.
That's right.
Right, I see.
We call it sandwich,
Yes,
and then everyone, if you use it, everyone will know what you're thinking
yes.
about.
They're sandwiched together.
Two different
Yes.
pictures together
Okay.
in one mount.
One mount. All right, let's look at the next one.
We have
Ah, yes, this is a lovely one, isn't it?
that's again in Europe. It's in Poland, in marketplace in Poznań city, where urban landscape and part of the house was one object, and on this object I took another slide, another sandwich I create with human face, maybe Buddha face, small Buddha face, about 5 centimeters big,
Right.
which I took macro photography and apply on one surface.
Right. So you're using a micro and a macro, shall we say, and compressing them together, or sandwiching them, as you say. Now, if we move on to the next one, I like these dissolves. What you have here is the flower, and this is a fairly recent interest of yours, I would suspect, of looking at the butterfly on the flower. So it's a moving shape and a still shape, shall we say, and creating a beautiful abstract. It sort of reminds me of the work of Mark Rothko that you've got coming through here. Now, viewers looking at this can make out the shape of the butterfly. You can see the antennae, you can see the head of the butterfly, and then moving into the yellow of the wings of the butterfly and that color relationship. So when you're looking at photography, you need to choose your subject very carefully. You need to be aware of the light. You need to be aware of the angle. So sometimes you need to lie on the ground.
Distance.
Sometimes you need to climb a tree, or, you know, you've just got to be very, very patient.
If you allowed me, I have one request. We have here pictures. One of it I would like to show you, because again we can show something
in this one here,
which I
yes.
did. We have simple situation with Chinese fronton in Singapore, and on this picture I apply another picture, like we said before,
Making a sandwich.
making a sandwich,
You're
and
making
you
me
can
feel hungry.
find some strange objects here. Firstly, you don't realize what is it, but later on you can realize that it's eyes, and these eyes you can see here. You have just small statuette of a cat, and I took just pictures of its eyes,
Right.
and I apply on this fronton
Front.
of Chinese house
Right.
in Singapore.
Now here we have something very, very different. This is human interest, where you have a gentleman in a street in Europe and his pet rat. And so it is human interest, and you've gone in and taken that photograph. Now that appeals to a lot of people. Now in this one that's coming up onto the screen now is where you use a zoom lens, isn't it?
Zoom lens and very sporty pictures. That's Avon Descent last year, and picture from this venue.
Yes. So that allows you to put a special lens onto the camera where you can go in and appear to be very close, even though you're several hundred meters away from the actual action.
That depends on your situation. You can be very close, because you can turn from, let's say, 85 to 300 and shorten the distance between you and these people on the boats.
Yes. It makes you feel as if you're right into the boat next to, or in the canoe next to this gentleman who's paddling furiously through the whitewater. Now here we've got a typical tourist picture of up around Glancelyn, where people go surfing, and you've got the beautiful blend of colours, and it's a kind of shot that appeals, and you'll see it in gift cards, you see it in calendars. Well, Longan, that brings us to the close for today. Thank you very much for coming into the studio.
It was a pleasure, and thank you very much for invitation.
Good. Well, that takes us to the end of photography. And next week, we'll be looking at film and television. And until then, bye for now.
This program was brought to you by the Western Australian Department of Training and Employment. For further information on this or any other TAFE course, call the Training Info Centre on 1800 999 167.